Right, good evening, everyone. I've got a script I've got to start off with, and you'll love the first bit I've been given. It says, "Welcome to today's meeting of the Standards Committee. My name is Andy Roberts," just in case I forgot. And I'm the chair of the committee. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All emergency escape routes are clearly signed. Once you have left the building, the assembly point is in the High Street, opposite the Guildhall. This is a public meeting, and meetings of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photographing, making an audio recording, and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note, this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend the meeting, to this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to be filmed or recorded for any footage to be broadcast or published. Members and speakers are reminded to use their microphones. Hopefully we all turned on our microphones. Yeah, we're all turned on our microphones, and we've all, except me, remembered to mute our phones. Let's just do that. Right then. So first is any substitutes?
Chair, got no substitutes for tonight's meeting. Just to mention, I've had a couple of apologies. Councillor Stephen Kay sent his apologies, and I know that Councillor Matt Lamb is going to be a few minutes late, so he'll be with us shortly. And also Dave Kearney from Warren Parish Council sent his apologies.
Okay, brilliant. So your Matt's on the train from Kidderminster, I expect, so he'll be in good time in some time. Any declarations of interest? Right then, we don't usually have public participation, but we've got Chris Thorpe, something of a friend and colleague, who's here to speak this evening. So over to you, Chris.
Okay, my name is Chris Thorpe. I'm a resident of the Plains ward, and I've lived in Worcester for about 14 years now. I've also been a plot holder of an allotment on the Northwick Road, the Nora allotment site for most of that time, and as a site rep for the site to the allotments forum since 2013, and I chaired the forum for around 5 years. I've had, unfortunately, quite a bit of personal experience of the Council's complaints procedure and its investigations processes in the last year or two, and it's been far from a satisfactory experience, both on my own behalf and of those of another close friend who needed some real help due to his health and other conditions that he has. So I've come to address you about the complaints and policies procedure. Now, whether this is for you to put right or to pass on to others, I'm unclear. But if you can't correct it, well, if you'd like to take the recommended actions, I'd appreciate it. If you can't, maybe you can push it forward to the committee and the powers that be who can take actions. But I believe it would benefit, or more importantly, it would benefit the people of Worcester from a few changes to the complaints and procedures policy. Firstly, bearing in mind that many complainants are not familiar with the, you can hear me all right, can you? I wasn't sure if I pressed this thing. With the Council's complaints terminology, processes or procedures, I feel it is fundamental to a satisfactory procedure and an acceptable outcome that any potential misunderstandings or confusions are ironed out right at the start. Based on my experiences, I would recommend that the investigating officer speaks to the complainant before starting any detailed investigation work in order to clarify just exactly what the complaint is about and to confirm the redress is sought, recompense, personal apologies, restitution, revised procedures, whatever. This hasn't happened in at least 3 cases that I'm aware of, and it has resulted in a great deal of muddle, confusion, unsatisfactory results, appeals, and a huge waste of everybody's time and cost to the council. So my formal proposal on that point is that the investigation process and procedure be amended to ensure that the investigating officer contacts and speak to the complainant prior to commencing any investigation to clarify and confirm all aspects of the complaint. Secondly, a thorough and proper investigation needs to be a de facto conversation between all the parties concerned, enabled through the investigating officer. In my experience, this is not currently the case. During the investigating officer's works, as I've experienced, most especially before the, cut that bit out, but most especially before the completion of an investigation, a draft of the investigator's findings should be provided to the complainant for his response and or comment. This would give the complainant the opportunity to see the other party's responses to the complaints and provide him the opportunity to rebut any counters to the complaint, as I understand is the practice of the local government ombudsman. So a formal proposal I would like to put forward is that the investigation process and procedures be amended to give the complainant the opportunity to rebut any counters to the matters complained about. Thirdly, the investigating officer's findings, after the investigating officers are completed, I'm very unclear as to what the current processes are once these are published. In one instance, an official apology from the council seems to have been thought to be sufficient, whilst the complainant quite definitely did not believe that and expected much more, but not particularly including any financial redress. Complaints are often highly stressful and worrying for the complainant, especially where his health may not be at its best. This raises the question of what needs to be done to ensure the complainant is satisfied with the outcome of the investigation, or is at least prepared to accept it. Without this, the whole thing's just a waste of the complainant's time or the taxpayers' money. In some cases, the complainant may be seeking financial redress. In others, he may seek to see the offending parties reprimanded, whilst in others, he may be wanting to see some kind of changes brought into effect, policies amended, corrective actions taken, procedures amended, even constitutions amended. So a formal proposal that the council complaints process be amended to ensure that the successful complainant is kept regularly informed regarding actions to put things right by the council in the post-investigation period, and that the council makes it absolutely clear to all parties what actions will be undertaken to implement any lessons learned. As to complaints policy coverage, it's my personal experience that it appears council's complaints policy does not extend to cover complaints arising from abusive activities within volunteer groups, forums or committees working to support the council in the delivery of service to the city's population. So I have a formal proposal that the council's complaints policy be extended to provide all council volunteers working to support the city the support that they expect, and it should not just be a one-way street. There is a particular case in of the council's allotment service. I believe that changes are required to ensure that an adequate complaints process and procedures are in place to cover at least tenancy agreement matters, that is between the tenants and the council. I think that is largely already covered, but could perhaps be reviewed. Relationships between the site reps and council staff are covered in principle and refer to my earlier comments. Conflicts between tenants and site reps, I'm not sure how this instance would currently be dealt with, except within the allotments forum, which could well prove to be extremely contentious for many reasons, as it has been in the past. And then, perhaps most importantly, the relationships between forum members, the site reps, the forum members, the site reps themselves within the forum, all being council volunteers. And any redress here appears to currently lie solely within the remit of the forum, which has proven to be highly unsatisfactory, most especially where forum senior officers, such as perhaps a chairman, might be involved. How do you complain to the chairman about the chairman when the chairman is the only person who can address the complaint? It doesn't happen. There has been one instance of a complaint that's been lodged and lodged. It's never even been acknowledged. It's never been heard. It's never been referred on. So a formal proposal, if you would, that the council's complaints policy, procedures and processes be amended and extended as necessary to ensure that all council volunteers, including members of all fora, working to support the council, are provided with the support and benefits that should be available to them through a robust complaints policy. In the case of the allotments, this may require an amendment to the allotments forum's constitution. I've been advised that because it's not in there, we can't use the council's complaints process. I think that's disputable, but anyway, what happens here is going to depend largely upon the outcome of the current ongoing allotments review. But maybe I could ask this committee to bring some influence to bear on that. So finally, if anybody following through on these matters would care to discuss my experiences in detail so as to better understand the issues I've experienced, then please do not hesitate to get in contact with me. And you're welcome to have a copy of my little address if you would like it. Or if Andy would permit it, I'm happy to take a question.
I can't permit it.
You can't, okay, fine.
The procedure is that we have a published agenda, which we have to go out so many days, and we can't change the agenda, but that doesn't mean we don't value your input. And I think we would agree that the council will always listen to a critical friend, particularly when it's been explained in such a way. And Sean will have a full note of that. So now isn't the time, Chris, to go through it. But thank you again for your participation. You're absolutely welcome to stay for the rest of this meeting, but I'll leave that at your discretion.
I'll stay for a few minutes to see how it goes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much again. You've had before you the minutes of the last meeting. They were on the 9th of March of this year. Hopefully they've been read, and if they are okay, is it okay if I sign and agree those as approved minutes? Thank you very much. And then it's Sean, I expect to annual report on Standards Committee.
I'm having a bit of an IT problem and I haven't got an agenda. I don't suppose you've got a copy, have you?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, yes, my IT is a bit slow. That's probably a user error, but yes, so members, we're considering the annual report of this committee, which, as you'll recall, if you support it, will make its way to full council for noting. The report looks back on the previous municipal year and reflects on the different activities that fall within the remit of this committee. So at our council, the Standards Committee does more than assemble itself in response to a complaint under the Members' Code. Our Standards Committee also looks at complaints made through the local government ombudsman process and considers a work programme of activity to enhance ethical standards in the council generally. So the annual report follows a similar format to previous. You'll notice that we reflect on what the role and function of the committee are, some of those functions that I've just rehearsed, the membership of the committee in the preceding year, with Councillor Matt Lamb in the chair and Councillor Andy Roberts in the vice chair role. And this committee is distinctive in having representation from independent member and parish council representatives. The committee met 3 times, all by Zoom necessarily, and the committee is supported obviously by the monitoring officer in that statutory role. So the report recognises that consistent with previous years, there were a number of complaints considered under the Members' Code of Conduct. And members of this committee will be aware that the complaints procedure that we follow for consideration of Members' Code of Conduct reflects, as is common across the country, that complaints are confidential unless and until there is actually an investigation, a hearing by a subcommittee and a finding that's upheld. So therefore, a lot of the information that's considered in relation to Member Code of Conduct is necessarily held confidentially in camera. But this report is able to note that 11 complaints were considered. All of those were assessed in consultation with the independent member which is with a designated independent person, which is as required under the legislation and our local complaints procedure. In respect of 5 of those complaints, they were deemed to fall outside of the code or for there to be no breach, therefore the outcome was no action. In respect of another 5 of those complaints, before reaching any determination on whether the code had been breached or not, the monitoring officer, in conjunction with the independent person, concluded that they could be resolved by informal resolution, which, as you will know, committee ordinarily takes the form of a letter to the member concerned and some advice. And in one instance, at the time of completing this report, the assessment was not yet complete. So I suppose all I would say is that is not an untypical year for this council in terms of activity under the Members' Code of Conduct. And of course, we do have 35 members, and councillors and members of the public make use of that complaints procedure. So there isn't anything there that I would particularly wish to remark on. Moving on to ombudsman complaints, the committee considers individual complaints that have been referred to the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman where those have been upheld. In the preceding year, the committee considered 5 upheld complaints. And those have all been considered previously on exempt papers as they made their way through the ombudsman process. So the committee will be aware of what those were. In conjunction, the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman produces an annual review letter. And that looked back, I have to say that that's a year behind. So that's looked back at the previous year and noted that we'd had 5, the number of complaints that they'd received which had been upheld had decreased from 7 to 5, but of those 5, all were upheld. Activity between the Ombudsman and the Council did slow during the COVID year of 2020. There was a period of time during which the Local Government Ombudsman said they were effectively not operating, but that did pick up towards the end of the calendar year. And by the end of the municipal year, we were back on a normal footing, dealing with our complaints. You'll note actually, committee, that we have a subsequent agenda item about complaints upheld by the Local Government Ombudsman. And in this quarter, we are not reporting any complaints upheld by the Local Government Ombudsman. I just move quickly on to note that members and officers continue to declare and register interest in gifts and hospitality, and the registers are available for inspection at the back of the room should you wish to do so. An item of business that this committee considered was reporting back on outside bodies, because as committee members have noted before, it's important to keep under review the value of our outside bodies and to feed that information through to our Policy and Resources Committee that make the appointments. And so the committee considered a report on outside bodies, and I think that those participating found it helpful to reflect on the wide range of activities that that members participate in. And when we considered that item at committee, we noted that as we move forwards and look at some of our strategies again, such as the city plan, that would inform where we really wanted to put our effort in terms of supporting outside bodies. Then just moving on, the committee, through its work programme here, considered the code of conduct for members, I think at each of its meetings, and we're pleased to be able to note that we have, as a council, adopted all of the best practice recommendations of the Nolan Committee, where those were within the jurisdiction of our council. Some of them require legislative changes, which clearly we're not able to make. The committee also considered and responded to a consultation on a revised model code of conduct. And at the end of the calendar year, the Local Government Association published a new model code of conduct. And we have, as a committee, debated sticking with what we've got, which is a pan-Worcestershire code, which has served us well, or moving to a new model code. And on balance, we've decided that we should probably move to a new model code in time for the next municipal year, although it won't look so drastically different to what we already have. So that's work underway, which I would be expecting to bring back to you at your next meeting, Chair. Again, consistent with responding to complaints, dealing with the learning points that come out of complaints, we look to proactively issue guidance, and the committee's considered guidance on the use of stationery, council logo, letterhead, and the giving of personal references. And that's been delegated to Chair and Vice Chair and the Monitoring Officer to conclude. And then finally, I would just say that we had a training session on ethical standards, again, delivered by Zoom with a really good level of attendance from city councillors, parish councillors and independent person. We had an external trainer to do that. And I think those that attended would probably agree it was a useful, very much two-way session. In response to the fact that we've had some new councillors join us, we've delivered some Zoom training to those councillors who took up the opportunity using the template that we delivered in February. So I think that concludes really the activity of the committee in the previous year, Chair.
Thank you. The recommendation is that the committee is consider the draft annual report and standards committee for the municipal year. Before we do that, are there any questions from members of the committee? Then can I ask if that can be noted? Thank you. And then we're on to reports to the Government and Social Care Ombudsman.
Chair, this is a standing item. As previously advised, there are no complaints upheld by the local government social care ombudsman in the preceding quarter, so there is nothing to report on this occasion.
We go straight on to the next item then, which is the complaints made under members' code of practice.
Thank you, Chair. So again, as previously advised, this report in the public session is very much just an information item to assure the committee that the monitoring officer is working with the independent person to review complaints under the procedure. I'm not at liberty in this session to discuss those complaints in any detail, as the committee will be aware. Since the last meeting, one complaint has now been, 4 complaints of, sorry, I'm just getting my wires crossed. One complaint received earlier in the year is now under investigation. 4 complaints have been received since we last met, 3 of which relate to the same subject matter. So we have 1 under investigation and 3 under assessment.
Any comments from members?
Beg your pardon, Chair, I'm sorry. It's actually 4 under assessment. 3 of those relate to the same matter. Sorry.
Still no questions, I don't think. In which case, I'll ask you to move on to, I assume it's you, to register of members and officers, gifts, hospitality, etc.
Thank you, Chair. Just to note that those registers are available for inspection at the back of the room should you wish to look at them. And because this is the first time we've met in person, obviously that's not something we've been able to do during the Zoom year.
Julian is waiting there with his forms and pens, I'm sure. Well, we've gone through that at a pace. So we've got any other business on the agenda. Is there any other business that anybody wants to put forward? In which case, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance. That may have been a record. The meeting is complete. Okay.